Project fulCRM really originates in the so-called early warning system, developed and used in our psychology department to address the issue of student relationship building and retention.
The early warning system concept was first introduced at one of our regular review days, and the idea was to create a very simple flag-based system where we could collect information throughout the year about students, and then when a student accumulated a certain number of flags, that involved a certain level of intervention.
When students fail to engage, whether that's by not attending, not coming to tutorials, not handing work in on time, getting poor grades, we would then approach those students to offer help, to find out what was going on, was there anything we could do to offer extra support.
This was operated on a spreadsheet by psychology tutors and had assisted in substantially reducing student losses.
We saw an improvement of 14%, so in other words, the number of students that were either dropping out of the course or failing to move on to the next year cleanly, that number considerably dropped.
Students found it incredibly helpful to have someone who noticed the fact that, several things were going wrong, which would normally slip under the radar, and that someone took the time to call them in and to discuss their particular circumstances with them.
A second impetus, though, is also important. This section set out, amongst other things, to address the issue of inequality of treatment of mitigating circumstance requests across the university.
The role of mitigating circumstances within the university is to provide students with an opportunity to log any circumstances which are affecting their academic performance.
The student tells us about those circumstances, and then the academic staff can make a judgment as to whether or not an extension or a deferral may be permissible.
Mitigating circumstances was becoming an administrative burden. As it was a paper-based system, there was many fail points and areas where things could go wrong or be lost, and the burden both centrally and locally within the departments was considerable.
One of the things that stimulated us looking at web-based solutions is that students often would say, well, I'm on email, can you send me the form? I want to be able to do all of that paperwork online.
The web-based system that we created provides students with a portal that they can access and enter their details without having to liaise specifically with their department at that point. Once we receive that, we can then make our recommendations and action our central processes, while the student can also view a record of all mitigating circumstances they have and other student performance indicators such as attendance monitoring and early warning systems as well.
So this became our project, to join these two systems together into a single application and database, to provide a platform for reporting on student performance to tutors and students together, and to provide the Assistant Registrar's Office with a less onerous business system. In order to maintain a student focus, we employed a researcher to develop focus groups to gain student reactions to the concept of performance statistics.
Students were involved in the setup of this project in a couple of ways. The first was an initial set of focus groups where we essentially canvassed student opinion on what they would want from a system, how they would want it to operate.
We had the opportunity, all of us, to have an input in what was going on. We weren't just there to listen to what others say, and we had quite a good discussion about it.
The student reaction to the new system was overwhelmingly positive. All of them, you could see it on their face when they actually got to see it kind of hands-on. They could see how useful it would be, and many of them had kind of ideas of what they'd like to add into it, what further developments they would like to see, what they'd find helpful. So overwhelmingly positive.
The relationships between staff and students as a result of the early warning system and Project fulCRM has greatly improved because it provides an indicator of student performance. So being called in for students isn't a negative experience. The feedback that we've received is that they find it very helpful and supportive for someone to have a bigger picture.
So that is Project fulCRM. On the one hand, it's a modern user-focused business system for handling mitigating circumstances requests, helping the university to meet student expectations of usability and fairness. On the other hand, it's a student performance system designed to provide early warning of the development of concerns about students, and to do this in a way which directly encourages the development of good staff-student relationships.